alternate arts. Is it now or never to purchase some of these cards? Now, with alternate arts going the way they are, it does leave a bit of an interesting time period that we are in right now, and whether or not it is a good time to purchase these alternate arts at the moment, given the way the prices have behaved within the last year. So if you haven't been kept up to date with alternate art news, particularly the Sword and Shield alternate arts, what's really happened is last year they were at the lowest point in history with their pricing, and then earlier this year they all climbed to their highest point in history, and now they are going down, 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 and they're reaching some slow level of a new market stability, most certainly above the original lows that they had. They're above that, though they have definitely fell down. And you know, the best time to sell your alternate arts would have been around May this year, and right now it's looking like an interesting period for these alternate arts. But I just want to say, if this is your first time tuning into the channel, my name's Phil, I'm a marketing professional, and I run this Pokemon investing, Pokemon collecting YouTube channel. If you enjoy Pokemon collecting and you enjoy discussions relating to Pokemon TCG news, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I'd honestly love to have you on board, and it's always awesome to see new faces on board the channel. Though in saying that, with these alternate arts, there's so much to talk about, man. Like, there's just so much going on that I think a lot of people haven't really understood with the cycles of these markets and how alternate arts have just performed. It's been volatile, man. Like, it's been no different to crypto and those kind of things. It's just been such a chaotic market. And I feel a lot of people haven't spoken about this. Like, yes, we all love doing our Pokemon collecting and our Pokemon investing, but we have to be real with ourselves, man. Like, these cards have seriously gone to their lowest point in history, to their highest point in history, and now they're just dropping down again. Though it does make you wonder, will they now climb back up again, or will they drop lower? I do have some of my own opinions on this. Firstly, I do question how long in the long term can so many cards stay valuable for such a long time? And what I mean by that is, yes, of course, your Umbreon VMAX can hold this high. Sure, your Blaziken VMAX can hold this high. Yeah, sure, your Gengar and your Giratina V. These are your high cards. But then when you go to cards like Machamp V, or Beedrill V, or Skuntank V, and all these other cards, you kind of does beg the question, will these cards be able to hold their prices in the very, very long term? I don't have the definitive answer for that, though it does make you wonder, like, just how long can they hold for? Like, there's a lot of cards, man. Like, you gotta think that Pokemon printed the most amount of Pokemon cards ever in history from 2022 to 2023. So when they've printed so much cards, how can these cards sometimes hold for 10 years from now? So you might be collecting all the alternate art cards, right? And you might be buying, you know, whatever it is, Beedrill V for the price it is at the moment. But can that hold in 10 years? Is there going to be enough of a buyer pool in 10 years that you don't lose money on that purchase? It's a big question. Like, I do think usually with collectibles, how it works is your major collectibles are always going to hold that value. This is like your Charizard base set, your big collectibles in the scene. You know, with comic books, it's your first printed comic books. These are kind of your magnum opus, the crown jewels of collecting, right? You know, Blue Eyes White Dragon first edition, Dark Magician first edition, Dark Magician Girl first edition for Yu-Gi-Oh! These are your crown jewels of the collecting scene. When you start trickling down and going into further and further and drilling down further into more niche cards. Now I know what you might say, oh wait, but Beedrill V and Arceus V and Urshifu VMAX, these aren't niche cards, these are alternate arts. But no, they would still very much be considered slightly niche to a mainstream audience. The mainstream audience doesn't see Umbreon VMAX as niche. It does not see Giratina V as niche. It doesn't see Gengar VMAX or Blaziken VMAX as niche. Though when you start going into the other alternate art cards, the not major hitters, your buyer pool of collectors starts getting trimmed down. It's almost like a filtration system, right? So what happens is you have this massive amount of people that all love, you know, your major hitter cards like your Umbreon VMAX, Sylveon VMAX, etc. And then it slowly gets filtered. And then usually with some of your other alternate art cards, you're going to have a very filtered amount of buyers in the market available for those who are just looking for those cards at any specific moment. It's not going to have this worldly demand like some of the other cards. But I want to go through some of the prices and talk about whether or not is right now the time to buy these alternate arts, though it's anyone's guess on what can happen. So sitting on the Beedrill V. Now, great card, man. great card, but very interesting things are happening, right? The low point for the Sword and Shield alternate art era was sitting around this October-November period last year. This was sitting as a $16 card, and then it climbed to its absolute high in May this year for a $48 card. Really expensive, dude. Really expensive. And now you can see it's tapered off and it's sitting at around a $28 card. I think that is quite a significant drop, okay? I think that given its price point in the market, I think that had a massive rise and now it's had a pretty significant drop. When I'm looking at that graph there, sure, it's above its previous low, but still, man, that doesn't give much confidence when you see a rise of that much and a drop to that low. It does make you wonder, can this drop further? I do think it can, though right now, is it a good time to buy? We don't know. No one has the answers, though it does seem right now with that stability, because one thing you have to also think of when these prices go on like this, what you got to really look at is this stability here. That stability is a real good sign. It means a market is stabilizing. And with TCGs and all these collectibles, when it stabilizes, usually what happens is going to hold that price point and it has to go either one way when that it's kind of like a water that breaks through the dam, though we don't know which way it will go, though it is a bit of an interesting time to look at these cards. Moving on to the next one, which is the Zeraora V from Chilling Reign. This one is crazy, man. So you can see its lowest point in the market was $38, which was last year when the alternate arts kind of all dipped down. Mind you, this is an amazing card, right? So its highest point in the market from $38, it went up to $61, which is an enormous rise. And you can see right now it is sitting at a $40 card. When we look at its lowest point in the market from $38 to $40, Zeraora V has literally gone back to its low. So there you go, an example of an alternate art card that went with the trend, it followed the trend, but this is now dropped down to its low. $2 off its low, man. I'm sorry, but it's back at its low. It has literally not been able to hold the massive price hike it had. And you know, this is a danger. It can go even lower depending on how many buyers want this card, because you got to remember, I always speak about it. It's not about how much you think the card's worth. I don't care if you paid $1,000 for a card. When you sell it, will the buyer pay $1,000 for the card? So, you know, that emotion needs to be taken out with your purchasing decisions for these cards. And that's why singles, it is a little bit of a dangerous market, particularly with this stuff like this, man, because you can buy at $40 and you might have said, whoa, it's going to keep going, it's going to keep going. Well, guess what? If you didn't sell at the high for this Zeraora V, you're just back to square one. And with inflation and how your money loses value, and with seller fees, you've actually lost money. So, you know, being opportunistic with the times you want to sell is very important. Moving on to the next one, which is Machamp V, one of my favorite alternate art cards. But you can see there, I'm on the year graph. I just want you to look there right now. You can see that market stability is happening, and that's got a very stable market happening. Either way, it does beg the question, is now a good time to buy? Though when that river breaks, when that dam breaks, is it going to go down or up? These are the questions we need answers to. But here we go. You can see its lowest point in the market was around, I believe it was a $78 card at one point. I'm just trying to find that there. Is it anywhere there? It's not. Yeah, there we go. $78 in February this year. It was the market low in February this year for $78. And then you can see the Machamp V climbed all the way to a $190 card. What an enormous rise. It's almost unbelievable that it had more than double. And then you can see now it's tapered off and it's sitting at a $129 card. Pretty significant dip from 190 to 130. Though you can see it's obviously higher than it was. Though I do think that this card, personally, I think it's an amazing artwork. I think Machamp is a Generation 1 Pokemon. This is a great alternate art. I'm going to be very interested to see what happens with the price. I'd love to know your thoughts on where you think Machamp V will go. This, to me, is an amazing artwork. So I wouldn't be surprised if it did climb again. Though again, it's tough times. You know, people are tighter with money. And when people are tight with money, are they going to be purchasing their collectibles? These are the questions we need answers to. Moving on to the next one. We are on the Sylveon VMAX. Now, I'm in the 6-month timeline here. Now, I'm going to go into the year, and you can see it with the Sylveon VMAX. You can see its lowest point in the market was $127. And then you can see it climbed all the way to $269. And you can see now it's sitting at $191. Pretty significant dip as well, man. It's obviously above its low point in the market from last year, but still it's climbing quite high. And you know, it's going to be interesting. Again, you can see that market stability is happening. These evolutions are always going to be desired. I do think when I was speaking about that filtration system, these evolutions are still in that top bracket. People love them. There's a lot of market demand for them. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with these. Moving on to the next one, the Blaziken VMAX. Okay, Such a sick card, dude. This card is just gorgeous. One of my favorite alternate art cards in all of Sword and Shield. And, you know, for good reason. It's just such a unique artwork. I love it. It's got the juxtaposition of being in an ice environment with a fire Pokemon. It's unique, it's witty, it's cool. But you can also see here, its market low was around the $160 mark, which was when that alternate art dip or the crash happened last year. And you can see then this climbed all the way to a $405 card. Crazy, crazy value. And you can now see it's sitting at a $293 card. To lose $100 off your value is a lot, man. That has lost a significant amount of value in the last few months. Yes, it is above the high, though again, we can see that stability is happening again. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this Blaziken VMAX. Moving on to the next one, which is the Giratina V-Star from Crown Zenith. Now, I don't think this one's had enough time as the others because when you're looking at the Blaziken VMAX, that was around since 2021. This card here, the Giratina V-Star, has only been around since January 2023, and it's gone through a bit of a substantial market shift, considering it was around during the alternate art dip, and then it went through the alt art boom. You know, it's been in a weird era for the time, but you can see the card as well. It climbed with the boom and it went up to $125, and now it's sitting at $106. The lowest point in the market it's ever had was $67. So this one is quite interesting. I do think though, given the fact that Crown Zenith is quite abundant, there's a lot of restocks and reprints and new products for Crown Zenith still coming out, which is pretty crazy to me. But nonetheless, I do think that this one could go down a little bit further in value. It's going to be very interesting to see. I did make a video talking about the 6 Pokemon cards to never buy at the moment, and this card did make the list. You can watch that video there to get more information of why I said that for this Giratina V-Star. Moving to the next one, which is the Rapid Strike Urshifu. Such a cool card. One of my favorite alternate arts again. Even though Battle Styles isn't one of my favorite sets, I have to admit that this card is punching above its weight for Battle Styles for the, you know, the quality of the artwork. Cool thing with Battle Styles, man, is when the alternate art boom happened, Battle Styles was lagging behind nearly all the other cards, which is, you know, weird to see. But anyway, the lowest point in the market was actually in March this year, which is so weird because the boom happened in May this year. So the fact that this had the lowest point at $48 in March this year was crazy, but you can see it climbed up in June to $75. So you can see Battle Styles had that little bit of a lag behind other cards. The Tyranitar, the Sleeping Tyranitar was also the same. And you can see now it's sitting at around a $60 card. So when you're looking at where it was last year, it was sitting around a $57 card in January, and now it's sitting at a $60 card. Again, it had that little bit of a move upwards, but again, I don't think that this card's really done anything, to be honest. Yeah, sure, it went up a little bit, down a little bit up, but you know, this all happened in such a small period of time. You can't even really, it's just too volatile. Like, it hasn't even had any kind of stable price point at a high. You can see that high lasted. In May, it went to 71, and already by July, it started going down. That's like a month where it had that high. I don't think that's a long enough time for it to cement some new price. So I don't think this Battle Styles Urshifu's done really anything, really. But moving on to the next one, which is the Gengar VMAX, one of the GOATs. Now, very interesting about this card, you can see that stabilization that's taking place right now. A new price point is being established. I personally love it when I see that, because what that tells me is it's not going up, it's not going down. You're not seeing this up, down, up, down, up, down. What you're seeing is for a few months that this price is cementing in, meaning the market is saying, you know what, we're all comfortable with this price. Sellers are comfortable selling it at that price. Buyers are comfortable buying it at that price. It's a good thing to see. It's a healthy thing. But you can see here, last year, $185 in November. Quite a low card. Climbed all the way up to $407. Crazy value. Now it's sitting around very consistently around this $300 mark. I do think $300 US is quite expensive for this card. Given the fact that Fusion Strike was so abundantly printed, I still think $300 is very expensive, but nonetheless, I'm not going to judge where I think this card will go. I do think though it can go down in value as well. I do think that there's a lot of love for the card, but I'm not going to pretend like it isn't tough times at the moment as well. And like I said, the first thing when there's tough times, people go for their collections. Moving on to the next one, which is the Arceus V alternate art. Again, the lowest point in the market, this was at $21, climbed to a massive high of $57, and now it's sitting at $28. From the lowest point in the market to 21 to 28, again, this Arceus VSTAR is looking absolutely horrible in terms of what it kind of done. It's gone up $7 from its previous low. But the fact is, you know, from that high to that low, just way too volatile. It does beg the question, what on earth was happening with these alternate arts? Though it is funny because knowing when to buy these cards is incredibly important. Though in saying that, I did talk about some alternate arts today, but if you want to see the 10 most undervalued singles at the moment, then click this video on screen right here. Within this video, I talk about the 10 most undervalued singles at the moment in the market right now. And the smartest thing you can do is buy the cards when they're at their low rather than when they're at their high, like what I showed you today. Click that video on screen and I'll see you there.